The following is a special presentation of the Red Stick Business Report. Watch future episodes on Soul of the South or contact your local cable provider.
Hi, welcome to the Red Stick Business Report Show. This 30-minute show is designed to provide you with an insightful look at some of Baton Rouge's most exciting and dynamic business and community leaders. The information that we share on this show is not to impress you, but really to impress upon you that you too can make a difference in this community and in this world. So let's get started with this week's show. I'm excited about having our guest on, Mr. Todd Sterling.
Hi, Howard.
Todd, how you doing?
I'm wonderful.
Hey, Todd is the owner of Alpha Media Public Relations and Advertising. Also, Todd's a father, community leader, and I'm proud to say he's one of my personal friends, and this is a first. Appreciate you being on, man.
No problem. Looking forward to it.
Well, we're going to dive back to some early years, the years before I really knew Todd, and talk about growing up in South Baton Rouge, St. Francis Xavier, Mayfair. Todd, if you could just share how that close-knit community left an impression on you and taught you some values that you still use today.
Wow, you went really way back. You know, I went to lifelong resident of Baton Rouge, went to Mayfair Elementary, and at Mayfair Elementary, my mother was the 5th grade teacher and my uncle was the principal. So I really couldn't get in much trouble, or I got spanked right outside of my mother's class. So that was my first impression. Don't screw up at school because you're going to get spanked.
Literal impression.
Literal. Then after that, we went to St. Francis Xavier for 6th through 8th grade, my middle school years. And that was interesting, having to grow up at go to a Catholic school, but having to fight public school boys because you had a Catholic school. I couldn't make the choice to go to public or Catholic. My parents sent me to St. Francis Xavier, and yet I had to deal with that. But I wouldn't trade it for the world, and the nuns at St. Francis did a wonderful job, and I have a lot of lifelong friends from St. Francis Xavier. And then from there, I went to Redemptorist High School, which was another good educational stepping stone for me in my life, and met some really nice people and played sports. And you know, the good thing about the way I grew up was I actually grew up all over Baton Rouge.
Right.
Growing up in South Baton Rouge till I was 13 and my parents divorced. And then we lived in Crestworth, actually next to the Bel Airs and across from the mayor's house for 1 year. And then my mom bought a house in Mayfair where I'd gone to elementary school, and so I knew all those people. So literally, when I'd go about as a high schooler and guys are getting into fights, I didn't have to fight so much because I knew everybody because I had been in South Baton Rouge, North Baton Rouge, and then South Baton Rouge and Mayfair.
Yeah,
so
you technically couldn't choose sides because you
sides.
fit in all sides.
All of them were my boys. All of them were friends to me. So, and as the oldest of 3 boys, we had a really, really good upbringing here in Baton Rouge because we knew a lot of people.
Right.
And a lot of people knew us. My mom was a teacher and then a principal for most of her career. My father, a lot of people knew him, and just, you know, it was a good upbringing here in Baton Rouge.
You know, one of those things, and we'll stay back in those early years, there's always 1 or 2 people that really resonate and speak to you. You know, talk about who that Mr. Johnson was that just left an impression on Todd Sterling.
I had a lot of people like that, you know, in my church. I went to Mount Zion First Baptist Church, and there were a lot of influential people in that
Right.
church. Reverend T.J. Jemison, of course, was the pastor.
Talk about him a little bit and the impression he left on you.
You know, Reverend Jemison was such a charming man that, you know, he made every parishioner feel like they were his best member.
Wow.
And, you know, you really can't trade that. And for whatever, like him or not like him, he was gifted in the way he preached and is definitely in his race relation building in Baton Rouge and in the building of Mount Zion to be a whole city block of Baton Rouge. There were also people in that church like an old frat brother, Frank Williams. You know,
Yeah.
Brother Frank Williams.
Old piece of weather, well put together.
Well put together. And other wonderful people in that church that I grew up under, and you know, they made a real impact on my life. But in school growing up, I had wonderful teachers like a Miss Gaines in 4th grade, Olga Gaines. You may see her around with the Six-Man Club. Still a beautiful lady, still a beautiful spirit, and it's always good to see people like Miss Gaines or like Miss Mabel Emery, my 1st grade teacher, and be able to interact with these people who I've known literally for all 46 of the years I've been living, and they're still here, and they're still in my life socially. So I had, that ability. But one thing about having a popular mother and father is that you could go and get in trouble and think you'd gotten away with it, but then by the time you got home, somebody had made that call. Your son was over here acting a fool, and you have to deal with that issue. But at the end of the day, it really, really was a wonderful upbringing, and I had a lot of people who looked out for me, looked out for my brothers. I had a wonderful family and a wonderful social circle.
You talk about it. A lot of people look at Todd Sterling and think he went to Southern University. Talk about that decision to leave Baton Rouge, go to Northwestern State, and help some kids decide that sometimes you just have to leave home and it's a better fit for you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm the oldest of 3 boys, and my mom was a single mother trying to make it all happen for 3 boys. And when I graduated in 1984, we really hadn't talked about college much.
Wow.
My mother and I, and my mother and all of my family had gone to Southern. But, having not really talked about it, I played football at Redemptorist and got recruited by 2 schools, Southeastern in Hammond and Northwestern in Natchitoches. And I chose Northwestern because they actually recruited me a little bit heavier, and my grandparents lived in Mansfield. And I figured if I ever got to play on the field at Northwestern, they could come and see me play very easy. And so I chose Northwestern purely because they recruited me, and I wanted to play football in college. But it's definitely an interesting decision as an adult. I had 4 wonderful years at Northwestern State, 1984 to 88. Pledged a fraternity after I stopped playing football, got involved in the student activities board, and did all the things you're supposed to do when you're in college, and had a wonderful college career. Even married a girl from Natchitoches, and been married to her for 22 years now, and she's given me 2 beautiful children. But as an adult, I almost wish I'd gone to Southern, because I see the Southern alums and their love for Southern that, I just don't have that for Northwestern.
Right.
Enjoyed my time at Northwestern, proud Northwestern alum, but what I see from the HBCU alums is very different from what I have for Northwestern. And, I'm around so many HBCU alums that it really, really is interesting to know that a school can make that much difference in your life. And then there's also the generational connections and the traditional connections, right, and the familial connections. So I tell people all the time, especially this year, of course, with Southern playing Northwestern again, I am a proud Northwestern State University Demon alum, but I am a son of Southern University.
Well, I don't think we actually played that game, and that's a whole nother story.
That's a whole nother story.
Hey, as we come back for the next episode, the next segment of the Red Stick Business Report show, we're going to dive into Todd's professional career, and it's real interesting. So stay tuned for the next segment of the Red Stick Business Report show. Hi, welcome back to the Red Stick Business Report show. I'm on set today with Todd Sterling of Alpha Media. The great thing about it is, an interesting thing about a show like this, you often don't reflect on your own life or truly get to know a person until you started diving in to their bio and started asking questions about it. I'm learning things about Todd. It was an interesting story he shared with me about Northwestern. That was a story with Julian Bunn. Todd and I are both Alphas. And Todd, if you would, just kind of share that story, how y'all had made a plaque about with the legendary Julian Bunn.
Sure. During my time at Northwestern State, I was on the student activities board, and we could bring in different lecture series personalities. And of course, when the decision to bring in Julian Bunn presented itself, I was like, yeah, get him, because I thought he was an Alpha Phi Alpha man. And so, we brought in Mr. Bunn. We had a nice packed crowd to hear his speech, his lecture. And then afterwards, we tried to get a photo op. We got a photo op with him, and we presented him with a plaque. And of course, the plaque said, "Thank you, Brother Julian Bond, for coming to Northwestern State, something, something." And he whispered in my ear, he said, how you figured I'm a brother? And I said, you know, a lot of people were telling us that you were a brother. And he said, well, I'm not an alpha brother. I said, but you are a brother, so congratulations, Brother Julian Bond. And it was just a good opportunity to meet a civil rights icon, good opportunity to have a wonderful college memory, and many of those were had at Northwestern State, from bringing in concerts like George Strait and Lee Greenwood and the Bar-Kays, to bringing in comedians like Rondell Sheridan and a whole lot of other people that were personalities,
right.
And they will come to Natchitoches to perform for the students there at Northwestern State. So,
you know, that takes us, you know, we started talking about your professional career, how you came back, and that kind of segues right into it, radio.
mm-hmm.
You know, talk about how you decided to go into radio. Did you find radio, or radio found you?
Actually, Howard, I wanted to be the next Brian Gumbel. For you younger people, it's Matt Lauer. Matt Lauer on the Today Show. But back in 1984, 88, it was Brian Gumbel. He was the man on TV.
He's from New Orleans.
He's from New Orleans. I went to school to be a journalist, and definitely Brian Gumbel was my idol. But then after I graduated, I got about two $13,000 a year job offers from a TV station in Ellick and a TV station in Shreveport. I had no desire to live in Shreveport, and Ellick ain't much better, and so I actually came home. And when I came home, 9:33, they already had their allotment of newbies and new hires, and so I actually went to look at the radio stations, right, to try to get a job in news. And Mr. Peter Moncrief owned Citywide Broadcasting, kind of.
Let people know what that is. You know, Q106,
KQXL, Q106.5, now Max 94.1, and WXOK, the Heritage Station, 1460. But at the time, it was just KQXL, Q106.5. And I thought Peter was hiring me for news. And when I get there that first day, he said, "Sterling, I changed my mind. I'm not going to put you in news. I'm going to put you in sales." And I'm like, sales? I went to school to be a journalist, man. But, you know, he was telling me the money I could make in sales, and I think that first year I made 19 grand. The next year I made 36 grand. The third year I made a little bit less than 60 grand. And I never looked back. 3 years later, I was a general manager, and I was a GM for 5 years, and had a wonderful 16-year career in radio. Definitely enjoyed my radio days, and you know, it's one of those things where you fall in love with a medium. Media is one of those businesses that it connects you with your community. You're important to business people, you're important to community organizers, right, you're important to the regular everyday Joe, because you have all the fun, all the news, all the business all rolled into one. And so I've stayed in media, obviously, for 23 years.
Now, talk about that. You mentioned Peter Moncrief, truly a legendary business person, visionary person. Talk about learning from him and you developing him to be a leader.
You know, Peter, and I got to also give a nod to Bill Tucker, who also owned the station at the time. But both of those guys were incredible business owners. I think Peter had a construction company, right, Citywide Construction, and Bill Tucker had W.E. Tucker Realty forever, while he also owned the radio station. He also owned the churches up until Katrina, right, put his Church's Chicken business out of business. But it was interesting because working for two black businessmen, the business was definitely more familial oriented. You know, mm-hmm, we were competing against 3-4 other broadcasting groups, and it was definitely us against the world.
Right.
It was us against, you know, companies that were really doing some big dollars, and yet we had success, and we were taking a really big chunk out of the market because we had a great product. We had great broadcasters. We had really good salespeople, and for a while there, you know, we obviously did a wonderful enough job for Peter and Bill to sell to Cumulus Broadcasting or whoever they sold to, Citadel right, Broadcasting, and they cashed out. And from that day forward, I realized that working for somebody is not the place to be if you can choose that road.
Right.
always try to have an entrepreneurial spirit. If you don't have an entrepreneurial spirit, keep your job. But if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, step out and try to make your own business happen, because America rewards small business owners. And if you have a good product, you have a good service, people will patronize you. And if you know how to deal with people and have a good spirit about yourself, I think people will definitely patronize you.
I think you bring a great point, the entrepreneur spirit. Even when you're working for others, I think it's important to have an entrepreneur spirit.
Absolutely, Howard.
Explain that a little bit.
After leaving Peter and Bill, I had the opportunity to manage 93.7 The Beat, KTBT, a station that Nanette Kelly owned at the time. And it was one of those things where, you know, I come in as the general manager. Chris Clay was the program director, and we looked at really trying to build a great radio station. Make a long story short, she paid less than $3 million, sold it for 6.3 in less than a year. And I was like, I'm in the wrong place. I'm on the wrong side of the work equation. I need to own the business and not work for the people. And so that helped me to make my mind up about starting my own business.
Yeah, I remember those days we had this conversation about, man, I need to get out here on my own. And we're going to talk about that a little bit, about what's going on with Alpha Media, how you help the community, the value you bring to people. Because, you know, knowing you personally, I know what you've been through, and I know how much you love what you do and how you help people. So please stay tuned for the next segment of the Red Stick Business Report as we talk more to Todd Sterling and learn more about Alpha Media and the exciting things they're doing here in Baton Rouge. Hi, welcome back to this week's segment of the Red Stick Business Report show. We're on set today with Todd Sterling of Alpha Media, having a great time just reminiscing back from Mayfair Elementary School to St. Francis Xavier up to Northwestern, which I've heard a whole bunch of stories we can't even talk about, to days in radio here in Baton Rouge, and urban radio in particular in Baton Rouge and Lafayette. So you know it's just some great stories, but some great lessons. And I think that's one of the things that we try to, you know, to get out of our guests is those lessons that people can learn from. Because even though your life is different from Todd's, there are things that he did that you will really learn from by just looking at it and evaluating it. So let's talk about that decision to start your own business. We talk about that entrepreneur spirit a little bit, but talk about what finally made you say, hey man, I'm gonna start Alpha Media, here we go.
I think, Howard, you know, I'd had some success in the radio business, and I told you that the lady I worked for sold the station, made a $3+ million profit, and left me looking for work, you know, because after she sold back to Peter and them, and I kept moving forward with my career.
Right.
But I think that for me, the decision to go to work for myself was, you know, I'd probably made millions of dollars for people, and I'd made a nice salary for myself. But what I realized is I could actually make maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars for myself and be really happy.
Right.
And call my own shots. And at the end of the day, I think I was working at Guarantee Broadcasting, my last stop in radio, and one of my sales managers came in and they were doing an account shuffle. I think they were taking away 3 accounts from me. One was Coke, of which I had probably 60% of the market share.
Right.
AmSouth Bank, of which I had about 70% of the market share, and Jerry Lane, who I'd had a long-term relationship with. And they were giving it to another person because they really need to take care of this other person. I said, so you guys are saying you're not going to take care of the Sterling family and you're going to take care of this other family. I don't get it. I'm lost. And I said, well, listen, I'm going to the beach, and when I come back, I'll let you know if I'm going to stay here. And I went to the beach, and I said, you know what? I'm going for it. And my kids were young enough to where I realized if I didn't make it as a business owner, I could plug back into work and get a job in media and be okay. But if I made it, I'd just never look back. And thank God, you know, 10 years now, I haven't looked back. And, you know, part of that decision means you got to work when people are sleeping.
Right.
As a business owner, it's not all glamorous. It's not all as people make it to be. You definitely have to put in more hours, more time. I like to play golf, and since I've been working for myself, playing golf has really gone out the window.
No, I know how your handicap is now, just like mine. It's terrible.
I don't have 5 hours to give to the golf course, unfortunately. But when I work for somebody, I would play a little golf because you know I was working for someone. But
let's talk about exactly what you do, Ty, because a lot of people hear advertising, media, public relations.
Sure.
And it's a vague term to most people.
It can be. It can be. You know, we offer professional advertising, marketing, consulting, and media management services to people. We also offer public relations services and video production services as well. One of the other things we offer is political consulting to clients who want to run for political office. And you know, they're all pretty much different disciplines, but they actually all come together. On the media side, you know, you can always just go to the TV station, go to the radio station, but it's better if you really want to make your money really work for you to work with a professional. Sometimes you might get the newbie of the month. Sometimes you might get the person who's going to sell you the package of the month. But you really need to deal with somebody who will help you look at your budget holistically and talk about really what you can afford to spend as well as what you should spend to try to achieve your goals, and then put together a plan based on that. Some people, you know, they can spend themselves into being broke because advertising is not a cheap medium. Right. Same thing with, you know, do I advertise or do I market myself? You know, sometimes some people don't need to advertise. Advertising can be expensive if you're using certain mediums and you're in the wrong places. But if you really look inward, you may want to just do some marketing, which consists a lot more of dealing with people internally, dealing with direct to business mediums. Yeah. And
I think one of the things that I see with you, and when we talk about ad agency, you give that holistic approach, whereas you calling a TV station or a radio station directly, you won't get the holistic approach to the market.
Well, I mean, I think people can do that themselves. They can go directly to the station, but when you deal with a person such as myself, you get the opportunity to have somebody handle all that for you, and you get to go sell widgets, tires, or whatever it is you do, and you don't have to worry about advertising so much until we meet once a month, once a quarter, and talk about what you're trying to achieve. It's the same way with you talking about, you know, how do you present yourself? I've had some friends, some clients, I see them in media, and you know their commercial or their creative looks crazy. And you know, the sad part about it is they paid for that.
Right.
And so it's always better if you have somebody who really has your best interest at heart, your image at heart, because image is everything, like Canon says. And if your image is looking a little shaky, people are going to look at you a little shaky.
You know, when you wrap it up, you know, Todd Sterling is in the image business. He manages your image and gives you a return on your investment.
That's really what it's all about, Howard, the return on investment, because business owners, dollars are important to them. And at the end of the day, if you can't get someone a return on their investment, you really aren't helping them.
You know, as we get ready to wrap this up, and I say this every week because it just goes so fast. I mean, a 30-minute show, you don't have a lot of time, but you have enough to really get below the surface. You know, one of the things I like to always ask leaders such as yourself, Todd, is I call it the legacy question. You know, what is it that you want Todd Sterling to be remembered by?
I would love that people would just remember that I was honest, that, you know, I dealt fairly with people, that if you see me at the grocery store, in a restaurant, in church, I'm always the same person. But then if you see me, you probably also see my family, because we roll like that. And that's really what it's all about, family. Yeah. Life is about family to me.
You know, just as we get ready to close out, I can wrap it up for him because I know him well. Todd Sterling's about keeping it real. I am who I am. I will always be that person. So for the next time, on the next episode of the Red Stick Business Report, continue to move forward and make Baton Rouge a better place. A little over.